Start the stream. The stream begins. And we're live. With 0 concurrent viewers, cause I'm super popular like that. Hello, Internet. Or rather, no net, cause there ain't nobody here, but whatever. It is what it is. Hopefully somebody will watch this at some point. I'm just moving my chat over here because at one point here we're going to take over the windows and not be able to see what's going on. Hey, howdy, yo, hello. All right, we actually have some viewers. Cool. Very good. I was starting to feel a little lonely. All right, so I have gathered you here this evening to share the fruits of CL and I's labors. So, if you were here for the chat, what was it, about 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago? Something like that? Anyway, if you were here then, you might be aware that CL and I are starting a new channel called Restless Shadows, and it is going to be ghost stories primarily, because we love ghost stories, and so we're going to be writing some, narrating some, and CL's going to be like doing the magic with making them extra cool with like music and sound effects and all that jazz. Well, first of all, thank you to those of you who headed over there and actually subscribed to the channel, even though it had 0 content. I really do appreciate that. That's awesome. Special shout out to Ariuf for their special support so far, which I really do appreciate. So, here's the deal. The trailer for the channel is done. And it's only a minute long, because, trailers shouldn't be crazy long. And so I'm going to share that with you tonight, and then while we're chatting here, I'm going to make it go live. And so the channel will actually have content on it. And I'd really love it if all of you, after you watch it here, if you go over there and give it some views, because obviously me sharing it on my stream is not going to get us any shares, is not going to get us any view time on that channel. But hey, it's all good. It's all good. Oh, you're almost done with your short story. Awesome. We are looking forward to that. So, just really quick, just to summarize. So, we are also opening the channel for submissions if people want to write their own sort of like ghost stories. We're really looking, like, it could be paranormal type stuff. We're looking to avoid the whole like serial killer human beings being crappy human beings thing, because like, man, there's enough of that in this world. That's not what we're looking for. More like spooky, scary type stuff, but not like real world type scary, because the real world's scary enough. But we definitely welcome anybody to submit their stuff. We've set up a website where you can do it, all that kind of stuff. The links are in the description down below. The links to the new channel are in the description down below. And yeah, so anyway, we're going to play the trailer. I'm going to get it loaded up here first because, make it look like I was all prepared for this and stuff. Boopity boop. I gotta move the chat over so I can actually control things. Alright, so I'm gonna go super silent because you gotta listen to the trailer yourself. If you are not currently listening with headphones, you might want to put headphones on. I mean, it's not a requirement. Although, if it's going to take you a while to get headphones, don't worry about it. You can always go to the Restless Shadows channel and just rewatch it with headphones. Highly recommend it. We're going to talk a little bit about this whole thing when it's all over. So let me switch over and we're gonna play this thing. You found a place where phantoms dwell, with spooks and ghouls, things born of hell. The crows call rasp while specters wake.
Somber winds moan, and spirits quake. What visions spied from edge of eyes may summon forth a dark demise. Whispers foretell fortunes undone, nightmares embrace a hidden haven. Met here are tales both new and old, haunts who are lost, souls who were sold. A scribe's inky tides weep, then weave, moonlit lore found upon dimmest eve. Sit back, relax, forget your woes. Welcome home, these restless shadows.
Come on! Come on! Oh, chat. It's so good. I'm like so excited by that. Okay. All right, where'd my chat go? I gotta bring it up. Okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Okay. There we go. All right. Okay. Yeah, I'm so excited by this. Oh man. Okay. So hold on a second. I'm gonna do something real quick. I'm gonna access YouTube somewhere else here. I'm gonna do it in another. I thought if I changed my user in the same browser, it might go wonkadoodle on me. So I don't want to do that because that would be bad. Yeah. Oh, maybe I can't do it in this. Okay. All right. I'm gonna make the trailer live once I'm done here because I don't want to muck up the whole thingamabobber. Yeah. So the it's gonna go live. Maybe I'll try it. Let's see. If everything goes to poop, I apologize right now. Hopefully it won't. I'm watching myself on other stuff to make sure that it seems like it's still working, but you never know. You never know. Let's see. Okay, I think it's working. Okay. Boom. And we are going to make it public and publish. Boom. All right. Okay. And then we're going to close that. All right. Awesome. There we go. Cool. Okay. So, in the description of this live stream, again, there's the link to Restless Shadows, the new channel. You can go and watch that trailer again. Please do, because then it actually starts building up some watch time on that actual trailer and on the channel. Share it with people you know. I'm going to do this for CL. So, CL, we've been watching a lot of YouTube streamers and stuff. And there's a particular YouTube streamer called Technoblade. And I kind of do some imitations of him. And I was like, let's go! Oh, yeah. We're going to do this thing, man. It's going to work. All right. Okay. I'm like, okay. So we're going to talk for a minute about what's going on. Because, I'm like so jazzed by that trailer. Okay. So that is an original sonnet that CL and I have discovered that as a team, what seems to work best is she does kind of like a real rough idea. It could be just a conversation, right? When we were talking about the trailer, we were like, kind of like that, almost like that Vincent Price in Thriller vibe. And so then I sat down and I wrote sort of this rough draft. And then I handed that to her, and then she completely edited, rewrote, added to, made it the cool thing that it is. And then I did the narration, and she used Premiere Magic to turn it into something super, super cool. Yeah, I can never listen to myself just read that again. It's so boring now compared to what she did with the trailer. And so that's kind of what we've been doing in the background. So Restless Shadows, one of the things that we'll be doing is reading classic ghost stories. I've already recorded a full one, and then we've got a couple more that we're going to be doing. Sort of like ghost stories that were written about 100 or years or older. And then, yeah, CL's going to light it up with that sort of radio play-esque treatment. Yeah, just like so jazzed about it. So, and then what we also have done is we're going to do originals, which are basically stuff that we've just come up with, either based on like life events or just sort of ideas that came to us, what have you. And then we're kind of doing the same thing. Like we're kind of we've got a spreadsheet of all these ideas, and then I'm writing out sort of the first draft, and then I'm handing it off to CL to actually make it sound good. Hello, everybody. Hello, welcome. Hello, stream. Hello, everybody in the chat. Let's go. I mean, yeah, man. I want to, yeah. Give me some of that Minecraft money. I'm okay with it. Anyway, so we are kind of blending sort of our own new stuff with this sort of old classic ghost stories that we really enjoy. And it's been kind of fun. Like, I talked on here a couple of streams ago about how much I wanted to get back into writing and stuff like that. And what has been cool about this is that there's a lot of pressure when you try to think to yourself, I need to write a book, like I need to write a novel. It takes so much planning and everything else. And then you start it and you're like, oh, what if I don't what if it's too much, or what if I'm not doing enough, or what if it's a very different, I've never really written, at least not probably since school, when I was in school, and I'm talking like high school, which is a long time ago, guys. But I haven't really written any short stories, and this is cool because it's something very different. I've never really written ghost stories before, so it's neat for me. It's a different sort of experience. And the only thing that CL and I have noticed is that, I know a lot of you are here because you have been light novel fans and followed the channel because of all the light novel reviews and stuff that I've done. I'm sure it won't blow your minds when I say that light novels aren't always the most epic in terms of their atmosphere building, And obviously there's exceptions to the rule. I'm not saying that there's no light novels that do that, but a lot of them don't. A lot of them really just cut to the chase. And the thing about ghost stories is that there's you need that atmosphere. You need that kind of lived in world, and because it's a short story, you kind of need those little details that really connect you to the characters and what's going on, because you're not with them for a long time, right? And it's not like I've got 200, 300 pages to make you like a character, or to be invested in what's happening. So it's a very different approach, which is where CL's been super helpful, because I kind of now write I've read so many light novels and nothing but light novels, and I haven't really read anything, honestly, in 8 months. I mean, almost everything I've read has either been because of work, which of course is all business writing, which is as pedantic and as straight ahead and dry as you can get. Or I have read a couple of things about on writing and stuff, but even that, I mean, it's instructional, right? It's not the same thing. So I really haven't been steeped in atmosphere and novels and fiction. And so I wrote this one thing up, and CL's I handed it to CL, and I'm kind of nervous, oh, is it any good? Because it's my first ghost story I've ever written and stuff. And she checks it out, and she's like, I like it. She's like, the end gave me a little chill. I like that. She says, but it's a little too dry and straight to the point. And I was like, yeah, I get that. So she took it, did a little bit of magic and stuff like that, then handed it back to me, and I smoothed out a few edges that I thought it had. And I think in the end we ended up with something really cool that I'm looking forward to sharing with everybody. It's not done yet. Like it's written and it's like my vocal is recorded on it, but we haven't done any editing or anything else like that. So that's coming. I also read this one by an author. I can never CL if you're. I know you're watching. Is it E.F. Barrie, E.R. Barrie, E.M. Barrie? I can never remember. Um, the last name is Barrie. And the first initial is E. I can never remember the second one. Uh, it just it is. But they are a very classic author of ghost stories, and they wrote this one called "The Room in the Tower," which was very cool. And that's one of the ones that I have read and recorded already. Um, so yeah, so it is it's fun. Like I'm having a lot of fun with this so far, and it's definitely making me try different things and write different things. And I know that there are a number of people that have said in the chats and everything else that they're interested in writing themselves or in getting into more writing and learning more about writing. Uh, E.F. Benson, thank you. The author is E.F. Benson. Barrie, I don't even. Okay. Anyway, we actually got a number of them. We've got like a ghost story that Dickens wrote. We've got one by H.G. Wells. Like we're kind of dipping into all of these different authors and of that sort of era, and because I mean those are the kind of the ghost stories that informed the style that we like, and yeah, it's just it's very very cool, and I have to say, like I wrote those things and then like recorded them, and then and then CL was like working on this like the trailer for a while. Then she's like, "Come down and listen to this and like check it out, see what you think." And I'm like, "Oh my god, like I gotta record more stuff because oh my god, I want more stuff just like done up like that." Like yes. uh Take a little sip of water here. Let's see. What else have we got going on? Anybody else talking? Cute Sugar Cube. You want to write your own light novel, OALN, but you found the community. Well, okay. So, I've gushed about Restless Shadows a bit. I'll keep gushing about Restless Shadows, honestly, but like, let's talk about OELNs for a moment because we are talking about writing and we are talking about, doing our own kind of thing. What I would say is just write the story you want to write. If in your head you're like, this is a light novel, I'm writing this as if it's a light novel, that's fine. But at the end of the day, it's all about how you market it, right? I mean, J.M. Barrie wrote Peter Pan. Maybe? I don't know. Anyway, this is kind of what, like, I had the conversation, like, somebody reached out to me one time on Facebook and was asking me about OELNs, and, they were looking to get writing, and they were like, oh, what are this, that, and the next thing, and asking me kind of, about how you write an OELN and stuff. And I was like, listen, first of all, I'm no super expert. Okay, I mean, when I wrote The Bleeding Worlds, I actually wrote it as a young adult novel series because at the time light novels weren't even really on my radar when I started writing it. I was funny enough starting into light novels when I finished it, but I hadn't started it. And so I wrote it as like thinking that I would be marketing it as a young adult series because that was really all that the market had that was similar. I freely admit I injected a lot of like anime references into it and inspiration into it. Totally. But anyway, to get to the point, I said to this individual, I'm like, look, just write the story you want to write. Write the book you want to write. Write it the way you want to write it. Write it the way that will make you happy at the end of the day that you wrote it this way. And then say to yourself, who do I want to appeal to? Because you know what? You could take the same book, and if you slap manga style artwork on the front of it, you could market it as an OELN. If you slap like, you know, a different type of cover, like, I mean, young adult seems to often be like photo manipulation and stuff like that. If you slap like a photo manipulated cover on that, you could market it as a young adult novel. You probably couldn't get away calling it like, well, I mean, depends on what you write. I mean, maybe you write something and you can put it out as like a hard sci-fi, or you can put it out as like high fantasy. I mean, you know, it doesn't, like, everybody gets so wrapped up in genre, right? And who they're marketing to and who they're trying to do this and everything else. Like, just write the story you want to write, and then, you know, find the people that you think are going to enjoy it, and give it the cover that you think it deserves and that you want it to have. You know? Anyway, that's just my 2 cents. I mean, again, I wrote The Bleeding Worlds thinking that it was a young adult series, marketing it as a young adult series when I started it. And then when I'd made enough money off of it and I was more into light novels and stuff like that, I commissioned an artist to do more like light novel artwork for the series. Because honestly, when I first wrote it, I kind of had that impression that I wanted it to be that style of art, but I just didn't have the money to do it. But at the same time, I don't think, like, I mean, I've marketed it partly as an OELN, but I wouldn't even go so far as to say that I think it is. But yeah, anyway, that's write what you want to write. Write it the way you want to write it. And you know what? It's all just about how you market it. And know, too, that, like, you know, the thing about OELNs, like, if you follow enough artists out there, there's enough artwork that honestly is not anime style or manga style artwork, but it would still appeal to that audience. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can find artists that are going to give you an awesome cover that you could market to multiple markets. It's not just an OELN, but the OELN community would take it. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, that's just my that's just kind of my way of looking at it. Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, man, I certainly don't want to turn anything political, um, but yeah, I mean, everybody's got their ideas of what is correct, or, you know, some people are like, well, you can't be a light novel artist if you can't be a light novel author if you're Japanese. Sorry, unless you're Japanese. And I mean, I'll admit it. Even me, like, I kind of was like, yeah, like, light novels to me are Japanese. Does that mean you can't write in the light novel style? Hell no. Go for it. You know? I mean, ultimately, you write a book and what you just are like, hey, it appeals to fans of light novels. Or it'll appeal to fans of insert anime name here, you know? Or maybe you think it's a blend of like anime, but also RPGs, right? So maybe you're like, this is going to be for fans of Berserk and Final Fantasy. I don't know. It's kind of a weird mashup. Not really weird, but you know what I mean, though? You can market it that way. And then you're not just in the weeb community. You're not just like, you know, you're not just marketing it to the OELN. Like, it's just, you know, you're just doing your thing, right? Like, yeah. And yes, you're right, Stephen. And it does, like, you know, it very much is in that sort of in community where we see a lot of argument about, well, is this anime? Is this not anime? Is this, you know, that, and this is that? Like, and let's face it. Here's the thing. You know, 20 years ago, Avatar The Last Airbender, we would have said, is not anime. It is a North American cartoon heavily influenced by anime. And I mean, I probably still see it that way. However, you can't deny the fact that even now, especially now, we are seeing anime being produced by international groups. Like, you might have the main studio be a Japanese studio, but they're farming out work to people in Korea. They're farming out work out to like China. Uh, like they're anime even now is like the only thing that makes it anime, like, or Japanese for that matter, is that the director is probably Japanese, or the main company that's releasing it, or financially, well, not even entirely financially backing it, because now you have like North American companies like Crunchyroll backing anime productions. Like, there's so much hand in it now, that it really, I don't know, man. There's stuff coming out of China, stuff coming out of Korea that, like, it's, other than the style of story, like, I mean, wuxia has a very definite different feel to it, but, really, unless you're really steeped in it, I think a lot of people, the lines between what's anime and what's not anime are getting more and more blurred, like, all the time. All the time. And, well, yeah, you're right. Like, there's, even French manga got transmitted. Well, come on. We already know, like, Hayao Miyazaki has already adapted Western works into anime. And are we going to say that Ghibli isn't Japanese? Like, but, like Howl's Moving Castle is, a North American title. You've got, or like a Western title. You've got now, also, I think, Ciel was telling me that she saw a thing about the Ghibli Museum opening, and that they've basically revealed the book that inspired My Neighbor Totoro, and it's like a French book, I think, like a French folk tale or children's book or something. Like, I think at some point we're all just going to wake up from this craziness, and we're just going to be like, you know what? We're all just people, man, and we live in a world that is super connected now, and all of us are going to be influenced by different things, and we're all going to be excited about different things, and, just do your thing, man. Just do your thing. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know why. Like, at the end of the day, who gives a shit if Avatar The Last Airbender is a friggin' anime? It kicks ass. It's better than some of the anime that I've watched. Fuck, it's better than a lot of anime that I've watched. So, like, let's not even start. Like, straight up, okay? And I mean, when the Japanese themselves are doing, like, manga that are, like, Viking tales and stuff, like, dude, I mean, they're ripping off Western tales and Scandinavian tales and, like, all this kind of stuff, man. Like, it's just like, at the end of the day, we all just are getting exposed to so much different media, and you're just going to be inspired by what you're inspired by. At the end, it's all just marketing. You know what I mean? Like, it's all marketing. Like I said, what's really the difference between one thing and another thing? Like, I mean, anyway. Someone told you that they don't watch anime because it's against their religion? Oh, weird. I mean, again, I could see that there are definitely anime out there that would have material that people would find objectionable because of their religion. Let's not get that could very well be. I mean, heck, there's people saying that their kids can't read Harry Potter because it's got witchcraft. I mean, yeah, anyway, whatever. It is what it is. That's a whole other kind of rant. Really, like I said, when it boils down to it, you know what? You do you. Like, as long as if you are influenced by something, you say straight up that you're being influenced by it. And as long as you're not out and outright like stealing, copyright infringing, and all this kind of stuff, I mean, like seriously, like I just that to me like that's just the whole thing, right? Is like you're just as long as you're being respectful, and as long as you're not stealing someone else's ideas. I mean, if you're a Japanese person and you want to draw like Walt Disney, and I mean they do, have at it. If you're person in Mexico and you draw like slamming anime babes, then I guess that's cool, man. Like have at it. Like why do you anyway? I think that we all just need to be good to each other, respect each other, understand that, and be flattered when people are inspired by things that we do. So, anyway, that's kind of my feeling on the whole thing right now, is that, you know what? As long as you're not being disrespectful, people should just be happy. People should be happy that they see their influence actually mattering enough to somebody that they want to follow that path. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, hell, if I wrote a story and like logged onto the internet and was flooded with people doing like artwork or stuff like that, I'd be like, holy shit, this is awesome. If somebody started writing stories and they were like, I was inspired by what you wrote, I'd be like floored. I'd be like, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Right? So, yeah. Anyway, that's just me getting a little off topic and philosophical about stuff. But anyway. However, that said, you do you. And if you do horror stories like ghost stories, and you would like us to read it and glam it up a bit, let me know. We, of course, give full credit, 100% credit. If you're a novelist or you got a website or anything like that you want to, have people go and check out, then absolutely we're going to give you credit in the description and everything, and even on screen. Like that that's not even a question. We would love to share great stuff with people and bring back like ghost stories and really classic ghost stories. You know what I mean? Like not the like revel in gore or that kind of, but just like creepy, man. Love creepy. We just love to work with different people, and maybe we can all like kind of collaborate on different something and make it all work. I mean, it's yeah, like, I just really like, I'm just really happy to find something that makes me feel excited. Oh, and there goes the back curtain behind me. That stupid thing, man, I tell you. I've tried to keep that up for I don't know what the hell how long. Anyway, whatever, it is what it is. Yeah. But in any case, I just kind of think that, everybody just needs to find their thing. They need to find their thing that they enjoy. They need to find their thing that makes them feel good about themselves and about what they're doing. Because, you know what? The world, guys, let's face it, it's fucked up. Like, there is so much anger and frustration. It is just dumb. And there's no reason for it. So just find the things that make you happy and hold on to it. And I'll tell you right now, there are going to be people that give you shit for it. There's going to be people like, if you decide to write something that's like a light novel, yeah, there's going to be dicks who are going to give you a hard time because you're not Japanese, you can't write a light novel. Or, you're going to whatever. Or like you even see it like this is what blows my mind. Like, you still see this shit in like the sci-fi and fantasy community where like they are less accepting of authors who are like people of color. Even if they're writing like their shit is awesome, it doesn't matter. Like, there's still such an old boys club and crap like that it's like there's still exclusionary forces at work in these areas too. Why? Like, who cares, man? Just write a good story. Write a good story that you enjoy, and you know what? If you don't like it, if you're a reader and you read someone's story and you don't like it, okay, hey, it's not your thing. That doesn't mean you have to be an asshole about it. It doesn't mean that you have to like tear a person down. Just means you got to just be like, cool, all right, well, it's not my thing. I mean, you know what? I'm not saying that you can't be critical of things. I'm not saying that like you can't review things. I mean, shit, I've reviewed things and had less than wonderful things to say about things over the years. But I think there's a way you can still do that with respect, and at least value the fact that somebody's put a lot of time and effort into creating something. I'm really running off at the mouth tonight. This started off as like one thing and it's become a complete other thing. Yeah, no, I know. Yeah. There's yeah. I mean, this is it, right? Like, you have like amateur writing communities that take shit from people online. It's like, dude, they're doing this for fun. Like, calm yourself. You know? Oh, there's something else falling down. I think that's the last bit of that one. But anyway. Let me see here. Dumb question. Don't know if I can answer. Well, I don't know if I can answer it either. Let's find out. I've found writing stories for a game harder. If you have any idea on how a story could be adapted to a video game. Well, no, I don't really have the answer to that exactly. It seems here's the one thing that I'll tell you though, just from being a gamer, and particularly being a gamer for like art, like enjoying RPGs and stuff like that. It seems to me, and again, this is just my 2 cents, but when you take a look at it, you have often in the writing credits, you'll have like, I can't remember how they usually put it. It's like you have like original scenario or something like that, is one writer. And then they have like, and then there's usually other like writers attributed. Like basically what it seems to me is you could write a story, but then the studio that's involved in making the game would take that story, and then you've got other people that basically would sit around in a room and be like, okay, well, so now we've got him traveling this way. Let's put a city there and let's do these side missions there. Okay, all right. You've got the main character at this point. He figures something out for one reason or another. Like, let's make that, extend that out. Like, let's make that a quest. Like, this is what I get just from looking at the credits on games. I could be completely off base, but it does seem to me that you have somebody who writes the base story that's kind of like gives you the idea of the characters and sort of where it begins and where it's going to end. And then you have like scenario writers that sit down and kind of plot out the side missions along the way and the little hidden eggs and stuff like that. I mean, like, take a look. Like, there's that FromSoft game coming out, Elden Ring. And I mean, that's like George R. Martin is the one that wrote that. And then worked also around... and then it's also... I'm not sure who the Japanese side of that, the co-writer is. Because I'm not as much of an expert about the FromSoft stuff. My son plays all their games and loves them, but I haven't, because I don't deal well with frustration in super hard video games. Although I have to say, Elden Ring looks absolutely beautiful. I'd be tempted to play Elden Ring, although I'd probably still get frustrated because it's probably way harder than anything that I'm used to playing. Yeah, yeah. Um, Messier, self-publishing. Yeah, self-publishing. Like I wouldn't say it's extremely difficult. So let's talk about self-publishing for a few minutes because I did that. That's how I put my books out. It's how a lot of, if you are looking into the OELN community, that's how the vast majority of them do it as well. There are some companies that will, like, I'm not sure exactly how they work. Basically, like, I know there's this one, I cannot remember the name of it to save my life right now. But they basically do Kickstarters for books, and then they essentially pay for the editing and the artwork and the formatting, and then I'm guessing pay royalties to the author for the sales. So it is, I mean, it is like a publishing thing, but it's not like they're getting these books onto bookshelves, as far as I know. I don't know the whole details. I like here's what I'm going to tell you. The thing about self-publishing that makes it difficult is that you have to, if you're really truly going to do it yourself, you have to learn how to do a crap ton of stuff, and or B, you have to pay someone to do a crap ton of stuff. So you're sinking money into this, and you're also sinking a lot of time into it that has nothing to do with writing. Like, and understand that at least some of these things, even authors that have publishing houses still do stuff, right? So, like, they do some of this stuff too, like marketing. So, in terms of marketing, the whole stuff about being on social media, interacting with your readers and all that kind of stuff, every author has to do that. It doesn't matter whether you're traditionally published or self-published. Every author has to do that. That's just the way the world works now. A lot of publishers don't have money for advertising budgets, so it's really up to the author to try and do word of mouth to get stuff out there, right? And then I see your question there, Cute Sugar Cube. I'll get to you in a second. So that part you are going to have to do. But here's the thing. You as an author who decide to self-publish, you don't have any marketing department. You don't have any publicists. You don't have anybody who's going to say to you, you know what? This is the kind of cover that's going to sell your book. You have to do all that research yourself. And then if you are not an artist who could make that cover, you've got to find somebody who can. And not only who can, but who can do it in a way that you can afford. You know, a publishing house would have editors that they'd be like, oh, we think this is be a good editor for you to work with to help you out, smooth your book out and everything else, make it as best as you can. If you are self-publishing, you have to figure that out yourself. You have to find an editor for yourself. You have to pay for an editor. Or you have to, you know, maybe you're lucky enough, like I was really lucky with the Bleeding Worlds, that I had people in my life that I could trust to take a look at it and give me good feedback that would help me smooth it out. You know, but again, like if you're having someone else edit that for you, you want someone unconnected from you completely because you figure their feedback is going to be brutally honest, you're going to have to pay for that. Then you need to learn how to do ebook formatting, or you need to learn how to pay someone to do ebook formatting. Then if you decide to have print books, you need to learn how to do print book formatting. And if you don't want to do that, you've got to pay someone to do it. You see where I'm getting at? Like basically, in order to self-publish, you're learning a lot of skills that have nothing to do with being a writer. And or you're spending a lot of money to have other people do that. And that's before your book's even for sale, right? That is before like you've even made a buck off of the book. You're sinking money into it. You know, the Bleeding Worlds, I had like 4 covers on that. I mean, like you're talking about $1,300+ for the artwork for the covers. Um, and like I said, honestly, I made my own covers initially. I don't think they were amazing. They weren't horrible, but they weren't amazing. Um, anyway, I did my own covers initially when I released it. It wasn't until it had made some money and stuff that I was like, okay, I can justify paying someone to do it. Um, so yeah, I mean, self-publishing in the grand scheme of things, is it extremely hard? No. Does it take a lot of time? Does it require you to invest money and effort and learn new skills in order to make it succeed? Yeah, it does. And if you're already pressed for time and money, it can suck. So that's maybe my little bit on self-publishing. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Let me see here. I know Cute Sugar Cube, I said I was going to talk about. Oh, how did I keep myself motivated and invested in what I was writing with the Bleeding Worlds? Well, funny story. I struggled a lot with the Bleeding Worlds. Um, the first book, see, it's really weird, okay? And it's weird how most of it's all head games. Like at the end of the day, almost everything in life is like a head game, right? And your response to what you're doing is all about a head game. The Bleeding Worlds, when I started that, it was not too, I would say it was probably not too long after my dad passed away from cancer. And part of what motivated me to write the book was because I had talked for years about how I wanted to write a book. And for years I'd started and stopped and started and stopped and written bits and pieces of this and ideas like that. And like CL will tell you guys, like she had to hear all these different, like I'd be like, every once in a while I'd be like talking to her and I'd be like, hey, I came up with this new idea for a book. And she'd be like, yeah, that's great. Are you actually going to write this one? And, well, I couldn't argue with her because true story. Anyway, so when my dad passed away from cancer, there was a lot of stuff that he had plans for, like and a lot of stuff like, and I mean, most people I think do this, right? They're like, oh, when I retire and I have time, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And, he didn't get that time. He was diagnosed 2 weeks after his retirement party and started chemo, I think like a month after that, and lived for about a year and a half, and then that was it. So I kind of was like, you know what, I need to get off my ass, and I need to get things done. I shouldn't keep saying to myself, oh, I'll get to it someday, or oh, I'll have more time someday, right? Because I realized, like, time just, when you go, you go. I'll also say that I was also had started working in ambulance dispatch, and man, I'll tell you, like that job, ooh, that teaches you too. Like, when your time comes up, bitching, that's it, done. So that was kind of what motivated me with the first book. Was like, I was like, I need to finish this. Like, I need to write something. I need to know that this thing that I've been talking about for so long is something I actually can do. And so I pushed, and I mean, it took like, over a year, I think. Like, I want to say about a year, might have been a little less, but close to a year to finish the first book. And then, of course, I had to learn how to make it an ebook. I had to figure out how to make the cover, like there was all that jazz, that I just talked about. And then I put it out, and it actually sold. Like, I think I sold, and I mean, again, like everybody's experiences are different, but I think if I recall, I put that out at the end of, I think it was like Halloween. I think it was October 31st. And if I recall, I think in my first month of sales, I sold something like 350 plus copies of it. And, that doesn't sound like a lot, but I was like, holy shit, like 350 people actually bought my book. Like, holy crap. And that wasn't even my best month. Like I had better months, honestly. And so, and I started getting some good reviews. Like people were like, oh, I like this. I got some reviews that gave me constructive feedback, which I took graciously and tried to learn from. Anyway, it gave me a high. And so I rolled into the second book, and I wrote and published the second book within like 8 months. So, 2/3 less of the amount of time it took me to write the first one. And I'd actually say that I think the second one was better than the first one. It got better reviews. But anyway, but then I'll tell you, I came off the second book and I just stalled like so bad. It took me 2 years to write the third book, and then it took me even longer. It was like 3 years, 3.5 years to write the fourth and final one. And I'll tell you, it was hard. Like, there were lots of times where I just did not write anything. There were lots of times where, like, actually with the third book, I started writing that, and I think I wrote about 15,000 words or so, and then threw the whole thing away and started from scratch all over again. Just decided that that wasn't the way I was going to go. Just tossed the whole thing. Started from scratch. But you know what? I think at the end of the day, what kind of pushed me through was at that point, one of the things that kind of pushed me through was that there were people who had read these books and liked them. And I was like, I don't want to be that author who doesn't finish it. You know what I mean? Like I was like, I started this. I need to finish it. I need to finish it for the people that have actually spent money on it. Like, holy shit, like somebody actually paid money to read this stuff. And just for my own personal self too, I was like, I don't want to be a quitter. But I would say, like, like as a thing, like, sorry, kind of like lose train of thought in the middle of it all. Yeah, see, yeah, I think like, yeah, I get like having to write, like you get all those ideas and then you're just kind of like, you can't write them down. Like you can't write them. Honestly, I've had that happening to me now for a while, since I finished the Bleeding Worlds. I think like the thing about the Bleeding Worlds is that when I got that first book done and I was like, holy shit, I actually wrote a book. It at least gave me that little bit of confidence that I could, you know, it, because I think that's kind of the thing that you play with yourself in your head is that you're like, I want to write a book, but can I? You know what I mean? Like, am I capable of it? And when you finally do write a book, you don't have that head game anymore because you're like, I can. It's possible. And it's funny too, like how, and so that helps, right? The thing that I would probably suggest, and again, like this is just, you can take it or leave it, obviously, but what I'm noticing right now, so when I finished the Bleeding Worlds, like it felt like, okay, I've run, how long did it take me? 7 years, 8 years to actually finish that series. When I finished it, I was kind of like, it was like, oh, I finished a marathon. You know what I mean? Like, holy crap. Like, I can't believe I actually got this finished, And I think it must be kind of how a runner feels when they finish a race and their whole body's just like, screw it, I'm going to lay down on the ground because I'm done, Race is over. All the adrenaline seeps away, all that extra energy that the was pumping through you goes. And I've had tons of ideas since then, and I've written all of them down. CL I saw said, make sure you write them down. Do that. Write all your ideas down. Because what's amazing is that sometimes, and this happened to me with the Bleeding Worlds too in later books, sometimes you'll start on an idea and you won't like it. You'll start on another idea and you won't like it. But suddenly you'll see where there's something that connects the two ideas. There's something in common between them, or even a way that the two can kind of be, just with a little bit of a change, the two can kind of merge to become something new. And all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, that was the thing. That's the thing. And suddenly you're writing. So yeah, write everything down. Don't ever leave an idea, even if it seems stupid, even if it seems asinine. I actually did write a book, another book that I even was confident enough that I paid for a cover for it. Actually, I've written 2 books that I was confident enough that I paid for covers for them. but then I, oh man, but then I decided I didn't like the way that they came out, and so I thought, like, why, I'll just leave it. So they've been sitting on the shelf for a while. But I'll tell you though, the one book that I wrote 1 chapter of it 2 years before I actually sat down and started writing it again and actually finished it. So, I share the cover, you say. Well, you say share the cover, but I don't know if I can share the cover. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, sorry. I should share the cover, but I planned those ahead of time, and I don't know how to do it on the fly. Anyway, like, can I tell you something that's really annoying about OBS is that it doesn't seem to recognize Microsoft stuff. So, like, if I open a picture and it just opens it up in, like, Picture Viewer on Windows, OBS, for whatever reason, does not play well with Microsoft stuff. Don't know why. Anyway, you know what? In another stream, I'll share covers and talk a bit about stuff. And I totally disagree with Stephen King saying not to write things down. I get what he's saying about the ideas that stick with you, like, are probably the ones you should write. And honestly, that is kind of true. I will say that ideas that stuck with me and that germinated in my head for a long time are the ones that came out. But I still also acknowledge the fact that I'm a scatterbrained human being that, gets distracted very easily. And so writing things down is a good idea. It's a good habit in general. Just in general, writing or not. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, what I was going to, but however, that said, write your ideas down. Allow your idea, like, don't give yourself some distance. You know what I mean? Like, just because something doesn't work out today doesn't mean that when you come back to it with fresh eyes a year later, it won't be different. The other thing that I'd say is that, and this is now my experience with working on some stuff for Restless Shadows, try writing shorter stuff. Like, let's say one of those ideas, you're like, I don't know how this would work as a book. Well, maybe you just take a character that you've thought of and write something short about them. Actually, Neil Gaiman, who's an author that I really love, that's probably his number one and most often given advice about writing, which is finish something. So, because the more that you finish, the more that it gives you confidence that you can do it, right? And it's admittedly that this is something that I'm kind of having to think about in terms of Restless Shadows. Was like, I've always had in my head, write novels. It's kind of freeing in a way to now do Restless Shadows as a project that is intentionally has to be shorter stories, right? It's a different skill set, but it is kind of rewarding because you get stuff done. You can sit down for a couple of hours and bang an idea out and be like, oh, I've got a first draft. Holy shit. It makes you feel like you're accomplishing things. I think that's the biggest problem with writing, is that it's a very solitary thing. Pardon me, sorry. It's a very solitary thing. You're doing it alone, right? Like, you're sitting in your office and you're working away, and you get stuck in your own head, and there's not really anyone you can talk to about it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you're co-writing things. Like, that's actually one of the nice things with Restless Shadows working with CL, is that, I can bounce ideas off of her, and because we're working on the project together, and because it's about sort of a thing that we both are working on, she can give me feedback, and it can help me kind of move forward. But yeah, like I think the thing is that since it's mostly solitary and you work on it so much alone, you really do. It's all about your own headspace and about your own opinions and your own thoughts. And if you can finish things and say, I am capable of sitting down and crafting a story, it doesn't have to be a novel, it doesn't have to be a novella. But if the more you can say that to yourself, the more confident you are, and the less you beat the shit out of yourself about everything. Get what I mean? Well, Kirby, in answer to your question, writing some one-offs as opposed to series, I'm just going to tell you this. Look at it this way. The Martian was independently published. It was first an independently published book. So one-offs can definitely do well. And in fact, I think, I think that's part of the problem that I've had too with writing longer stuff, is that a lot of the ideas that I get are for longer series. And I find that so intimidating now because I wrote a series that took me so long. You know what I mean? Like I'm kind of like, honestly, I would like just to write some more one-offs, like stuff that just tells its story and gets out of there. And I think in a way too, like Kirby, those ones in a way are a lot easier to market too, because a lot of people like one and dones. There's not, like, I know it's obviously we see it maybe a little differently because in the light novel community, almost everything's series. There's very few one-offs, but I really do believe one-offs can do very well in self-publishing. I think the reason that you see a lot of people, The Martian was a weekly blog. Okay, well, all right, but I mean, it was independent. Yeah. There's been a number of those. There's been a number of books that were independently published that have done very, very well. But I think the reason that a lot of indies do series is because a lot of indie authors are wanting to try and turn it into an actual full-time gig. And the thing about publishing, especially when you've got Amazon with so many titles and everything else and so much competition, is that the more books you have published, obviously your name shows up a lot more in searches, right? And also, if someone really likes book one, they're a lot more likely to pick up book two. At least that's the thinking, right? It's all about money. Like when it really boils down to it, right? It's the same. Well, it's the same reason why light novels, why the series go on for fucking ever. Like, you don't really need a series that's 30 volumes long, but the author keeps being able to milk the same idea, and so the publishers are like, woohoo, keep on going, people are buying. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how it is. Like, people, a lot of authors, especially indies, I think, write series because they can be very comfortable in the characters and the world, and they can just keep going, and you don't need to. Like, I think once you have an idea that's rolling, it's a lot easier just to add new ideas onto it as opposed to come up with a completely new idea for a completely different book. But I don't think, ultimately, here's the thing. If you could pump out 1 to 2 one-shots every year, you would be just as successful, in my mind, as long as they're good books. You would be just as successful as an author that puts out 1 to 2 volumes of a series every single year. In fact, in some ways, I think you would do better, because the guy who's doing series, if a person read the first book and hated it, they're not picking up any of the other ones. But just because they didn't like one of your books, they might pick up another one that's completely different. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. That's just my thinking. Anyway, Tapas. Funny story about Tapas. Here's the thing. I can't remember. That was a little further up, wasn't it? It was somebody who was asking, will I ever publish future books on reading platforms like Tapas? Okay, there. Um, so, Derp Bear. uh, so, funny story. Actually, The Bleeding Worlds is entirely published on Tapas, but you can only read the first bit for free, and then it's one of the ones that you have to pay for each bit after that. That actually was something that I applied to with Tapas, and they did. Um, so, I mean, it's not a bad little deal, and it's probably cheaper just to buy the books if you want to read them. I think that's probably true for every author who's monetized in that way on pretty much any platform that does it. Um, However, I think what you're going to see, like for me, whether I did Tapas or not, I the only reason I would do something like Tapas or, one of those sort of like, installments type websites is probably if I was doing something that I was just doing for shits and giggles and that I wasn't really putting a lot of pressure on myself to do. Um, but right now, because Restless Shadows is really where my head is at, I don't see myself using those services for that because it's just, you know, to me, like ultimately the channel's getting the content, and ultimately if I wanted to have it out for people to read, I'd probably just do a compilation ebook myself because I know how to do it and just release it. So, um, you know, does that mean I'd never release anything on one of those platforms? No, like I said, I did release the Bleeding Worlds that way. Um, but it was after the fact. Kind of weird, right? But it's just how it happened. It's kind of weird, but it is what it is. Just taking a look at the comments. Taking a look at the comments. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's where the advantage of sometimes writing short stories. And even, you know what? Here's the thing too. With with the Bleeding Worlds, um one of the things that kind of helped was to see just kind of each chapter as its own story in a way, right? Like they obviously all link together, but it's just kind of sit down and think about how it links together. And you know, just realizing that every chapter has its own beginning, middle and end. That's why I said like let's say you've got a world that's sort of making you go, I really want to write a book because of this world that I have imagined in my head. Write some short stories about the world. Write like, even if it's only a page long, write like some myth from the world, or write the story of like an ancient king from that kingdom or whatever. It doesn't even have to be stuff that would ever end up in the book necessarily. It's just flexing your muscle basically, like, you know what I mean? And ultimately too, like, it may be stuff that you can use later on as not filler, but like backstory, right? Or even just, one of the things that people talk a lot about with world building is that a lot of the time the author knows a hell of a lot more about the world than what they actually put into the book. And that's where you can kind of do that, right? You can write these short stories that are like myths, histories, and everything else, and understand that like none of that is wasted, because first of all, the reader, if you have a deep understanding of the history of the world you've created, the reader will sense that. They'll sense it intuitively, and they'll also get it as you're writing because it'll be natural to you. You'll be like, I've lived in this world. But it also helps you as a writer because it's less pressure for you to create things. And like I said, it's that whole idea of finishing, right? Starting it, finishing it. Another thing you could do, I talked about this on a stream a little bit ago, was just read yourself like a good book about actually writing, like, Save the Cat Writes a Novel. I found this actually really helpful and interesting. And as somebody who didn't really focus on plotting ahead of time, something like this can really help. Um, just kind of flying by the seat of your pants, I did that. And I did that with the Bleeding Worlds in the beginning, most definitely. And there were a lot of times where half the reason I stopped writing was just because I didn't know what to do next. Um, so, having a little bit of a roadmap can help. And no one says that you have to stick to it. No one's saying that you can't like go off course. But even sometimes it just helps. You know what I mean? Like it just helps in terms of giving you an idea of where to go. Like that's kind of like what I, even with Restless Shadows, having CL and I sit down and having these ideas that we've plotted out on this, graph or whatever, like just kind of like, I mean, it's an Excel, it's a spreadsheet. And, we just put, is this a life idea? Is this like just a story idea? Is this something from the news? And we just kind of write in whatever the basic idea is, but then we'll flesh it out. And having those really helps, like I've found that's really made things easier to kind of move through the story because I have some idea of where it's going. And I think that really helps. And like I said, just try and finish things, the more you finish, the better it gets. It's, yeah. Oh, cute sugar cube. You're turning 25. Man, I'll be honest with you. You got time. I get the feeling. I do. Believe me. Holy crap. Wait until you start feeling like that when you're in your 40s. That sucks hard. Like really hard. I mean, I didn't write the Bleeding Worlds. I was in my 30s when I started writing the Bleeding Worlds. That's how long I waited on that one. Um, there's an author, Paulo Coelho, that didn't start writing until, God, I can't remember the exact age, but I think he was in his I want to say he was in his 40s. He might have been older. Has published a ton of books. Celebrated author. I mean, you know, I think you just pursue the things when you feel ready to do it. You know, that is just like really, that's really where you gotta go. Um, how far are we playing things out? You mean for Restless Shadows? For Restless Shadows, we have about, I don't know, I think we've got 10 classics already picked out that we're going to read. I've recorded 1.5 of them. And then we've got maybe 20, no, like we've probably got 30 or more story ideas, original story ideas that we're working on. One is completely done and edited. The other is I've got a first draft of another one. We've got about a half of a first draft of another one. So it's moving along. It's moving along. Ideally, what we want to see is that Restless Shadows will have one original and one classic every week. That's the goal. We definitely are going to post something every single week, but part of that's going to depend on how much I can write and how much better I can be about writing and finding my time to write. And it's also just going to be too about like how long it takes CL to put these things together. Oh, 47 ideas. I was way off. Okay. Yeah. All right. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, the trailer took a long time for CL to put together. But again, like, she was pouring her heart and soul into that. Like, CL's CL kind of like downplays herself. She was going to start writing some of the stories too, and then she got partway through one. And she's like, I'm really not great at creating the story. But I'll tell you, she's amazing at telling you what a story needs. And she's great at the whole, then taking the recording and killing it. So she's more of an editing mind than she is like a creator mind, which honestly is kind of silly because she's very creative and created lots of stuff. But at least I guess when it comes to writing, that's seems to be more her forte is the editing part and knowing also just kind of what the story needs, like where it, what extra stuff it needs, where it needs to go. Yeah, I mean that's at least so far. I mean that could change. We'll see. We'll see how that all goes down. But hey, we'll see. When I write, what is my opinion of cliffhangers? When's the best time to use them and when they don't feel satisfying? So, cliffhangers. Well, I mean, cliffhangers obviously are. Well, I mean, like lots of books, especially when you're a series, like every series that, like, the first three books of the Bleeding Worlds all end on a cliffhanger. Although I would say they vary in degrees of cliffhanger. Like book one ends with basically the main character making a decision to move towards a new path in his life, which is kind of a cliffhanger, but it's not like, you're smack dab in the middle of the action and everything stops and you're like, oh. The second book is totally a cliffhanger. It's like, yeah, I intentionally made it a brutal cliffhanger. The third book, yeah, the third book was kind of a cliffhanger. I'd say it was kind of a mixture of the two of the first one. There was a couple elements of it that were like cliffhanger, and then there was a couple elements that were more just kind of like the character's going to transition. And then the fourth book obviously ended, so there was no cliffhangers there. I mean, pretty much, if you read most writing advice, they'll tell you, like, you need some form of cliffhanger at the end of every chapter. Like, even though a chapter needs to have, like, a journey, that middle, that beginning, middle, end, you need the end of each chapter to be good enough and enough of a cliffhanger that it's moving things forward. You need that momentum. You know what I mean? You need that things to keep pushing forward. But in terms of like at the end of a book, sorry, hold on one second. I'm ducking off camera. Ugh. Sorry. Sit down here long enough. I always get a runny nose for some reason. So in terms of at the end of the book, like I said, for me, I think it's fine if you are writing a series and the series is continuing. Particularly, I thought to myself, like, because the second book, I was so confident in how I felt about it, and I felt that it was going really well. I was like, you know what? If you've been invested enough to read book 1 and 2, you're going to hit the third one. So guess what? I'm going to nail you with a cliffhanger on this second book so that you push through. But that's just it. That's just how it is. So yeah, like really cliffhangers. I mean, cliffhangers are like, it's all about the structure of your book too, right? Like when I wrote the first book of the Bleeding Worlds, most of it focuses on just the main character. However, when I got into the second book, it branches off so that you're following actually a few characters. And so things that I would do is so like if I have, say, like 2 main storylines happening, storyline A will take up 1 chapter and I'll leave that on a cliffhanger. The next chapter, I start with storyline B. I make you want to get through like B to get to figure out what happened with A in the next chapter. Or maybe I extend it and I have 2 chapters of B and then make you go to A. You know what I mean? Like it's whatever, like I find honestly, and again, I am no expert. I'm far, far, far from an expert. But I find that so much stuff becomes intuitive if you've read a lot of stuff or watched a lot of stuff and you do it critically. You know what I mean? Like if there's like a book you really love, sit down and figure out why you love it. Sit down and kind of look at each chapter and say, what does the author do? Where does the author and like honestly, like I said, that structure of having more than one storyline and having one storyline, and having alternating chapters and stuff where they cover different parts of the storyline and they have a cliffhanger. Lots of authors do that. That's like classic way of making it so that you keep pushing ahead, right? It's particularly useful if, like, let's say, let's say story A is continuing on from your previous book. So let's just assume. So the Bleeding Worlds, story A picks up with the main character from the end of book 1. And that's actually how it does start. It starts there. When I start the B storyline, maybe that's not going to be quite as hit the ground running as much as A, because A already has a whole book that's led up to it. You know what I mean? So I leave A on a cliffhanger because B, I want people to like get invested in that because they want to get to see what happens with A. Does that make sense? I'm probably just shooting off my shit here, but you know what I mean? Like you books are all about push and pull, right? It's all about pushing the reader to the point where like sometimes they're even frustrated because they're like, what the is going on? And then pulling back a little bit and being like, okay, here's a few more things to let you know what's going on. And now we're going to ramp it up again. And now we're going to pull it, and then it's all that back and forth. So when you're talking cliffhangers, I mean, yeah, do you nail them with a hard cliffhanger every single chapter? God, no. That's going to frustrate the shit out of them. And make it seem like a gimmick. But you always want to leave the reader wanting to keep going. So you kind of have to find that balance. You know what I'm saying? Da, 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 da. I'm just taking a look at comments. I'm very, very bad at speaking and also reading comments, but I think part of the reason is that I've got my camera here and I had my comments over here. I've got to figure out a better system to kind of be able to take a look and read as I go. So, yeah. Oh, the blank page drama. I hate blank pages. They do suck. It really is like the worst part. That's why I said, like, sometimes just write gibberish. Who cares? I think the main thing for those of you that are into writing and those of you that want to write and those of you who are thinking of writing, the first thing that you need to learn about writing is that first drafts can be complete and utter garbage, and it's fine because nobody sees that. I think the biggest problem that I have is that I have a hard time finishing something and then convincing myself to go back and do it over again. And that's a hard thing that you got to get over. But you know what? Yeah, there were big chunks of stuff that I've written that I rewrote. Even the first original story that for Restless Shadows, I actually went back before I handed it to CL. I actually went back and rewrote parts of it because I was like, I knew the ending wasn't as impactful as it needed to be. So I went back and, I went back and rewrote the whole ending to it. And then by doing that, I was like, okay, well, I need to rewrite a few other aspects because I want to make it more, build that a little bit more. So just write gibberish. Yeah, automatic writing. Sure, why not? I mean, I think like so much of it's just head games. And I recognized when I was writing the Bleeding Worlds how much head game that I had in my head, where especially the later volumes, because I was like, I didn't want it to suck. You know what I mean? I was like, people have paid money to buy these books. People have left nice reviews about these books. I don't want it to be shit. You know, like I don't want this to be one of those series where they get to the end of it and they're like, wow, he totally flubbed the ending. Like, that played with my head too. It was like that whole like, well, okay, I've written three, after even like the fourth book, like I said, the fourth book was hell to me. Like it was hell. And it was funny because I'd say of all the books, the fourth book was the one where I had the best idea of what was going to happen. But trying to write it and be happy with it, oh my God, it was just such a slog. And like I said, honestly, if no one had ever seen the Bleeding Worlds, I probably would have given up. But part of it was I'm not going to be that guy who quits. And especially because people will know I've quit because they'll buy the third book and be like, where's the fourth one? Right? I didn't want to be a public quitter. Ultimately, my desire to not be a complete loser and quitter overcame my other phobias and other mental hangups. Pardon me. Boy. All right, so I think I've covered some of the stuff in the comments. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like right now, I think you'll probably find like there's not going to be a lot of light novel stuff here right now. There's still some stuff that I'd like to check out. There's one or two, like, there's actually were like one or two one shots that Seven Seas announced that I thought sounded cool. Like, there, what is it? The tunnel to, oh God, I can't remember. It's the one about like how the tunnel, you can find what you desperately want, but it takes enough time off your life or something like it's just, yeah. Anyway, it sounded neat. I can't remember the damn title, but it sounded neat. I remember looking at it and going, oh, that sounds kind of cool. Anyway, you might see the odd thing here. I might even, I've talked to CL about wanting to read some other, like even some more modern ghost stories, just to kind of get an idea of where those are now, because, I'm really into wanting to do well with this, and I'm excited about doing well with this, and so I want to read some more modern stuff, but obviously we can't do that on the channel because we'll get copyright striked. So anyway, but we'll see what happens. Yeah. So in any case, that's kind of where we go. So I might be talking about some ghost stories and stuff like that here. I might even, manga actually has a bit more of a selection of like ghost story, paranormal type stories. Maybe I'll do like a Junji Ito episode. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see how that all goes down. Although I'm not. Some of his stuff is like just disturbing. Like I'm not into the body horror thing, and that's kind of like his shtick. And I'm just like, anyway, so probably not him. Total props to him, and if you like it, cool, awesome, that's great. But yeah, no. Anyway, I'm starting to get a very dry throat, and my water's almost at its end, and it has been almost an hour and a half. And this went from one place to another place, which is cool. It's all good. I do enjoy talking to all of you. Thank you so much for coming and checking this out. I hope that you, if you were here from the beginning, I hope that you liked the Restless Shadows trailer. By all means, please go to the channel and check it out there. If you haven't subscribed, please do. The trailer will give you an idea of what the channel is going to be all about. And I'll be here again on this channel talking about stuff and about where I'm at and what I'm working on and what I have discovered in the, epic journey of writing ghost stories. So, there you go. Oh, Devino, we'll talk about why light novels have super long titles another time. Tonight, I'm all done for tonight, but sometime, keep it for the next one. We'll talk about it then. Any case, thank you all for watching. Take care of yourselves and have a good night. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye for now.